And we're back. That took a bit. VC Face just had problems, ironically, so better fixing that right now before. Oh no, it just works here. Don't mind Agonia's picture, I just didn't deactivate it. She is not. Oh, do you want to keep talking?
If you talk to me, I would answer. Otherwise, I keep reading.
You would keep reading your long-term gay shit. How gay did it get?
More gay.
Oh my god, that's good. More gay is always appreciated, I would say. Like... reading a lot of gay shit recently, but I mean, that's important. Yeah, I'm actually, since we talked about it in the beginning a bit, I'm actually very interested in how Vermintide 2 is now. Maybe also some of the free levels and such. We haven't just played it in years.
So what?
I just barely remember it, so I'm just like kind of excited about it.
You attack, you block, you dodge. And you shove.
You know what? I kind of dislike the fact that you are just breaking down the game into just like, well, it's just that. Like, okay, girl?
It's a real-time puzzle game, like pretty much every game. If it's not turn-based.
A real-time? I mean, yes, also no. I dislike your assessment.
It may be semi-randomized, but it is. If you know the correct answer to every situation the game can do, you can play it pretty much perfectly. Unless the characters you're playing are so weak that there are just certain situations where you can't answer.
I mean, yes, I know. It just kind of makes sense that everything is just like, everything is kind of a puzzle, but you can also need to react to it. I mean, in the end, I find it interesting that you, basically, okay, so remember how, okay, so there's this thing that, there was this Calvin Hobbes skit, a small comic strip, where, his dad was like, oh, hey, you're listening to my old vinyls. And he's like, you can basically sort every music into two groups. You know what? I'm just opening it for a bit.
You don't need to. Just tell me.
Yeah, and then someone did that for video games, like as an edit. There are only two types of video games: menus and parkour. So, for example, Europa Universalis, menus.
Yeah.
Parkour, Vermintide is parkour. Meanwhile, for example, I would also say something like Payday 2 looks like parkour is probably more menus.
More menus than you would think.
More menus than you would think, yeah.
I have a better definition. It's just puzzle games.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if it's real time, it's just a puzzle with moving parts.
That's actually very fair. I mean, you know what? You almost make me you almost make me want to redo that just with, oh, there's real-time puzzles and there's and non-real-time puzzles, which would also kind of like be parkour, but like it's actually more accurate with puzzles, if I'm honest. Okay, so aside from the snipers, I have everything here. Oh yeah, technically I could look into getting some class stuff done. Okay, what would be fun to do? Oh, did they give it a texture actually? I don't think it was red before. No, it's red. Deal damage with grenades as assault. Okay, I could do that. But oh, engineer. Damage aircraft with launchers as engineer. Ah, good. Okay, that you need to do something bullshitty to get this one, but I think I should work onwards to actually getting the second launcher. Smoke assist as support. I guess. Okay, you know what? I actually should do that. Okay, you know what? Do we want to flip a coin? Should I do engineer or should I do... Okay, chat. Engineer or support? Your choice. Okay. You know what? You know what's better? Dice roll. So, even or odd?
Even.
Okay, so support is even, engineer is odd. I'm doing the engineer stuff. Let's blow up some helicopters. Yay! You should also be more happy that I'm going to blow up helicopters. Yay! You're not excited?
Huh? You weren't talking to me for a while, so I started bleeding again.
Yeah, I was like, you know, I need to annoy helicopters with my missiles. Also, I have a P90. Look at it.
It's a shooty bang bang.
Yeah, but it's one of those with high capacity magazines and fast fire rate.
That's good.
Oh yeah, there is a new Stargate series coming from the original people in the original universe. So, big question now. Do you think they will give us a conclusion to universe? Why do you not answer? I want to talk.
I don't know. I just remembered something, okay?
Okay, what did you remember?
This is not for stream to hear. I'll tell you later.
Flare, come on. Oh no, don't dive down. Oh, asshole. It doesn't help, you know, that I want to talk about popular science fiction TV show with you, and you're just like, yeah, but my mind just had different ideas. It's actually kind of interesting because I do wonder if they might actually, because I know they said they're making a new series, okay? But one of the things about Stargate was they saved costs by having 2 series run at the same time. So I do wonder, I actually do wonder if they are going to make it so that they are finishing up Universe, because...
It does not feel like you're talking to me.
Yeah, I'm talking to you.
It doesn't feel that way.
No! What the fuck? Ah, come on. Okay. But, you know what, I'm actually have been missing stuff like Stargate for a long time now, because I do feel we had some good series recently, but you know, like the classic TV sci-fi is just dead, I feel, and that sucks.
Probably. I don't know. I'm not watching much TV.
I mean... Don't shoot me! I was about to shoot the helicopter. I mean, you watch Stargate with me. I think the worst part is that we have right now is that we are basically we watched Atlantis together, which is great. But I always wanted to watch SG-1 with you, but I hate the fact that, oh yeah, Stargate is owned by Amazon. Okay, is it on Amazon Prime? No. Okay, what the fuck? Oh. That was fast. I just got like 1,300 damage with one launcher hit. That is faster than I expected. But yeah. But I would say they definitely should start. When we talk about TV shows, I do think they need to start looking for better gay shit shows, because I do think every time there is a they're adapting something into like an anime or so, it's always the most boring shit imaginable. Like I think we brought it up again, and okay, so basically this season there is a new Yuri series, okay?
And technically you brought the name we use for it up and then immediately switched topics. Okay. That's what you did yesterday.
Oh, basically there is the show This Monster Wants to Eat Me. And let's just be real here. A lot of shit was could have been seen coming from miles away because it was just obvious. Like, for example, the whole she doesn't want to be eaten in the end. And also, no, like, I don't think I was already also like, they would check out of the company. Okay, do you want to say it? Okay, we're calling the show boring because it's just very boring and slow. It's not even an interesting slow burn. It was just most of the time.
So you're asking me to say things and then immediately start talking.
No, I try to want to get a point so you can say stuff good and Okay.
You're not very smooth right now.
I am actually not. You know what? Yes. This monster wants to eat me. Kind of a disappointment this season, isn't it?
Technically not a disappointment. There was no hope in it to begin with. We were just like, hey, those are things we should be interested in from the synopsis. And we watched the first episode and we were like, yeah, this is boring.
Yeah, I mean, let me just put up the synopsis of the first episode, okay? Basically, protagonist has lost her family in a car accident and kind of wants to die since then. And then she gets attacked by a yokai, gets saved by another yokai, a mermaid, and the mermaid is like, you know what, I will, I want to eat you, but not now. So basically, she wants to get her to a point where she tastes really well and then eat her.
AKA, she doesn't want to die anymore.
Yeah. So, if you think that sounds suspicious already... Oh boy, you figured out the whole series.
It takes a long time. I would say it's watchable if you have nothing better to do.
Yeah... I mean, the worst crime it does is...
You're kind of hurting me right now.
Sorry. Why? I'm too loud?
Too loud.
Okay, I'm tuning it down. And I think the worst part it just does is it's slow.
I don't mind it too much. But yeah, nothing much is happening.
I would say this like the last episode, the most happened in the whole series. I'm trying to find the words, but it doesn't really make it more interesting. It just made it actually safer. Like, okay, I actually talked about this. It's Baihei, actually, because this is from China. Yuri is Japanese, Baihei is Chinese. So I've talked about this manga that we were that we're reading, manhwa, and it's simple, but a lot happens. It has great characters. It has great comedy. You know, as I said, my food looks very cute. I think is it. I even think I do it wrong now because you just. Why can't you? Why are you like that? It's like, oh, I like your chili. Ah, yes. You mean with beans? No, I mean the one with chicken and it's yellow. That's curry. It's the same. No, and you just keep using curry and chili for curry and chili interchangeably, and it just fucks me up because I don't know what you want sometimes. Like genuinely, we had moments where he comes like, "Can you make chili again?" I'm like, sure. And then I bought stuff for chili, and she's like, "That's not what I wanted." I'm like, "You said chili." Yeah, but I meant curry. And it's just like, and say curry. Like I thought you knew. Your words. I thought you knew. No, I didn't. It's kind of hard if you tell me I want chili and then you mean curry. It's, But yeah, basically, the current Baihei we're reading is simple, but a lot happens. It's enjoyable. Like, you read a chapter and there is some conclusion. Like, I would say the biggest affront it does is basically setting a few things up that they could be seen as, oh, we're going to insert some drama, but, then nothing of it happens to the point where you're like...
Drama happens, but it's quickly resolved.
It's good drama, I would say. It's not the kind of, forced shit, but, like... you maybe get a bit of the assumption there could be forced shit happening, but then it doesn't. Which I think in one particular case it might just have, stretched that conclusion a bit too long. Or, but it's good. It's good. It's really good. It has good pacing. This monster wants to eat me, on the other hand. Open slow, stretches resolutions over the whole episode, then dares to make extra skits at the end to just pad it out even more, while just trying to be on cliffhangers and always doing the whole melancholic thing, before now just realizing, wait, the whole setup we had here would actually mean that we need to follow up on something very fucked up. And you know those series where you can just smell from the first 2 pages or like first episode they will never follow through on their premise? It's that kind of show.
Well, that's not necessarily bad. The problem is just that the main protagonist is... I don't think dense is describing it. Like, we know the typical gay Yuri protagonist. Yeah, they tend to be a bit dense, okay? But she's like, she isn't able to form more than 3 thoughts in the whole episode.
Oh, whoa, yeah, she's just uninteresting and like... like her main motivation was already very badly formulated. Like, oh, I just want to die because vague survivor skills to the point where I'm like, I know that, problems like that are not as easy to... it was just very shallow all the time. Like, it was very shallow. And then, that one premise she had, as in the one thing that made the whole show to a degree interesting in the beginning, just evaporated basically overnight. Like,
I don't think it did make it interesting or less interesting.
I can say, though, probably a bunch of people are going to be surprised to hear that, no, the premise the show sets up, which it actually sells itself on to a degree.
True.
It's just not going to happen. Like, maybe it was a bit obvious that this was never happened, but I'd still say it's a bit shit that it just doesn't follow through with it to a degree.
And now you're just complaining.
What?
Now you're just complaining.
I know. I should just not do it like that. I'm very sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, you might have wanted to attack this enemy.
I should have, actually. You're completely right. I just was like, nah, maybe I'm fast enough tracking backwards. I was not. But yeah, right now, the show just like... I think the best way I can describe it, if the most that happened after, I think, 9 episodes now, is that the central premise of your show is being dismantled for something that is not really that interesting in comparison.
You're doing it again.
And I'm complaining?
Yeah.
But is that okay?
We already said it.
I don't think it was formulated well.
You're just trying it the third time now.
I don't think we formulated it well, so...
Oh.
Maybe that is my problem right now?
Now you're squeaking.
What?
Now you're squeaking.
Yeah, I'm just questioning.
Now squeaking.
You should listen to yourself more.
Okay. I do think, well. Yeah, I do think they should actually adapt more of the interesting stuff.
True.
Like, the irony is that, people are always like, oh, will that even, sell? And the answer is, listen, if you just halfway competently open a show with a gay couple, especially a lesbian couple, it actually pulls a lot of people in. Like, let's not forget how many people Witch from Mercury pulled into Gundam on the premise of gay girls, even if it, like, nosedived in the second season. So hard that, yeah. And people to this day claim the show is actually good, which is just like, no, the beginning was good.
It had potential.
That's the thing. It had potential. It had a lot of setup, and then it just didn't follow through on any of it. That's the ultimate irony of this this show, which is why I don't think it was that particularly good of a show in general. But yeah, it's popular. Like, people are under-delivered, and yet we get nothing of the sort. Does this work? It generally works to a degree. Oh yeah, interesting thing about the canister I'm holding in here. So did you know that it was one of those things that one of the few things basically engineers during World War II in Germany, like the Nazi engineers, actually did well. And the Americans botched copying.
No, that one.
Yeah, this look here. And only after the British went and basically made an actual real copy, did it start working. So, just to know why this was important, and also, why an engineer smuggled them out and proposed that, the USA should also build them. See, wars are logistics, okay? You don't think of, the fucking gas can as a relevant piece of logistics, but it's impressively important. Like, from World War I onwards, warfare switched to a fuel economy. Like, the attack on the Soviet Union by the Nazis also happened in to a big degree because, they wanted the fuel from, Stalingrad and Ukraine, etc. I think it was Ukraine. Those regions. Similarly, why did Japan attack the Philippines and such? They needed fuel. Okay. Problem is just you need to transport fuel. And the original gas cans the British developed were literally called flimsies by soldiers. And that's not a good sign, if you're big, if your fuel canisters are called flimsies, and they had like 45 to 60% fuel loss just by standing around because they just weren't well made. Like, they were like, cubic canisters, they leaked, they expanded, it's just, they were done for, they were made for stationary purposes, but I mean, World War II was very much a mobile war to a big degree. Oh yeah, and the British fought in North Africa, so you can imagine how bad it got if you just have shitty shitty gas cans that leak all the time. Because also another thing you need to keep in mind, a lot of these cans were designed in the beginning because you're like, why? But fuel cans were just a new thing. Before that, everything else was designed around water, etc. Not fuel. Fuel is like very, very different to water in its physical and chemical composition. Yeah, and basically the jerry cans, as they were basically known later in the USA, those were basically designed to be, you know, really durable. Like, you know, it is to a degree just stamped metal. But, you know, they have like a cross-shaped indentation on the side, so you know, even in harsh conditions, the can expand and, you know, in the track, they have like 3 holding ribs. So, you know, you can carry them with 2 people easily. You can hand them in a chain. You can grab them on your own. Just like, there's so much good ideas in this design that it's just used to this day. You know, this is how much that design was just perfected. Which kind of led even to the point that when the Allies, you know, raided German camps, one of the most sought after resource was the German fuel canisters, because, well, if you wanted to do any operation in North Africa, you wanted to have you know, fuel on your tanks that didn't, you know, go to waste. And, well, you know, the Americans then were like, we don't want to copy that, you know, the canon beginning, because they were like, you know, it's one of those, we didn't invent it, why should we copy it? And it took a bit, and then they were like, okay, fine, we're, based on what we learned, we're designing our own version of it. Those were like the first jerry cans. And they were bad. They were mainly bad because they made one crucial change in the design. See, the German cans, they were 2 stamped halves of metal held together and arc welded. Like arc welded in a specific way that, you know, the metal is fused together. It's really, really, really strong. And the Americans were like, we can make that cheaper by just, I think it was just a way of, like, there was just a roll. They just made a very simple normal weld. They just rolled like, what was the can again? You basically put it between 2 parts of metal and just like not metal, just like rolls, and just press it together, because they were like, that worked for most of our cans. Why should it not work this time? And well, it was bad for fuel. You remember how I told you the chemical and physical composition of fuel is different than water? Because, yeah, the jerry cans worked well with water. They didn't work well at all with fuel. So... And so what happened, they still had like 40% fuel loss. Okay, about 30 to 40% fuel loss. So like, better than the British ones, but still. So what basically happened is, in North Africa, the Brits basically started sorting the fuel canister they had. Like, you know, British ones, they are just going to be in camp. You know, we're not gonna move them around or anything. everything that just needs moving but is, you know, not that important, that's where we're going to use the American ones from. And then, you know, for all the really important stuff, we're still going to use the German ones. And what happened after North Africa is just the British were like, okay, we are so fucking done with this. We're just copying the German design. And they did. And it worked. And then a few years later, the Americans were also like, yeah. Let's just arc weld the thing. And this is how they work today. Engineering history. Or, you know, why you should never fucking skimp on quality in some relevant things. Nice. I mean, you drive past me with a golf cart, I just blow you up. No! Oh yeah, speaking of, everyone, Antonia, did you know that there is a whole community in the USA, like one town, where they have like a whole golf cart network?
No.
And it's not even a rich one, they just basically started building stuff for golf carts, which let them having, like, because, you know, golf carts can actually not drive on normal streets, so they actually have like really well-maintained bike lanes besides the streets where everyone drives with their golf carts.
You mean they're not allowed, right?
Yeah, they're not as loud, you know. They're not allowed on streets. Yes.
Okay.
So basically, they just built their own golf cart street network in the town, and you know, they say a lot of old people live there because, you know, golf carts are actually very accessible to old people. And interestingly, it's a very quiet town, shockingly, because, you know, if everyone drives small electric vehicles,
I mean, true.
and you can walk everywhere because, you know, golf cart lanes you can actually use normally. So it's an interesting piece of urbanism that I don't think a lot of people ever account for, because they're like, oh, but what would be the alternative to cars? And it's like, golf carts. Or, you know, K-cars, because even if you have, like, a suburbia, you know, if everyone drove, like, electric K-cars, it would already make everything much more pleasant to be in. Actually, 100% agree with that one statement that Technology Connections made recently, where he said, you know, the fact that the exhaust filters on cars, I don't know how they're called, but they're basically part of the problem why we are not getting rid of cars. And it's not wrong, I would say. Because basically, while you would probably be like, wait, those are filtering harmful things out of them, and that's true. I don't think we should have that much harmful shit blown, you know, into our air anyway. Especially when the solution is they're basically just transforming it into more CO2. The thing is just, one of the main things that these filters provide is they make cars smell less bad. Like, old cars stink because of that. They don't have those filters. And, you know, if you ever sniffed at a, you know, gasoline-powered, you know, lawnmower, you know how much they stink. But our cars don't as much. I'm really not working well right now. Yeah, like basically a lot of like our cities stink due to cars. We just don't notice them anymore because the stink is just mild enough that we get used to it. But yeah, if you are actually in a region where, you know, cars are not as ubiquitous, or, you know, people use electric cars, it smells better. Noticeably. Huh. Well, let's focus a bit. Interesting that it stands this time. I had a round where basically directly in the beginning, oh, well, it was Conquest. I have to say that. But like directly in the beginning, someone just crashed through the roof with a helicopter. So the center part of the club building was just gone instantly. I just found that so hilarious seeing to see because I mean basically you have this center building here and you can level it a lot, but basically one bad pilot in the beginning just instantly big hole. Hey, everyone learns to fly somehow, I would say. Yeah. Ugh. Oh yeah, you know, talking a bit more about interesting things I learned recently was a bunch about blood protection, which is always a fascinating thing because, you know, bloods are always framed as, you know, those, you know, forces of nature that you can't really control. It turns out you can. If you're willing, you know, if you're willing to spend the money, you can actually make a lot of areas flood safe, which is just kind of interesting to be like, you know, to learn. Oh no, we actually have the technology and, you know, to just make stuff flood safe. We're just not doing it because, well, it would cost money. And then they're like, yeah, is a flood happening that much anyway? Because, like, basically I stumbled over the, I talked about this in another stream, stumbled about, you know, the fact that the rebuild of the Ahrtal Bahn, you know, that was devastated in 2021, is basically almost done. But also, there was a really good piece of documentary over how are they going to protect themselves from floods in the future? And one of the most interesting things is that that piece basically opened with an expert saying, ideally, people wouldn't live in that region at all anyway. Okay, why did my slam charge not work? Anyway. Because if you actually look at the historical data that we have, the Ahrtal is actually relatively flood prone. Like, it's actually an interesting thing. They basically looked past into the records of and we have some good records, and it turns out I think, the big flood was in 2021. But there was a similarly big flood in 1912. So 100 years ago, during the when the Kaiser was still a thing, they had a similar flood. Interesting, by the way. They were also discussing back then to do flood improvements. But since it then didn't happen again, guess what was dropped? And we come back to that. And then they go back and guess what? 1806. A similar strong flood happens in the Ahrtal. So what probably happens is, this is a region where people can actually, grow grow food pretty well, like wine and such, because temperate, and if you have a flood a region where there are floods, there's a reason humans lived near the Nile all the time, because that's good. That's very fertile ground usually. It just was the major floods only happened in such happened in intervals that just made it so that people stopped thinking about the fact that this was possible. So now we have the problem that, a lot of people live in areas where technically they should not be living, if we're honest, because it's just not safe. So how do you deal with that? Well, obvious thing is give the river more room. The people are actually advocating for some hills to be removed, just so there's more space for the river to expand to, because you need to keep in mind the flood was brutal. There's an interesting thing downstream that you can actually visit there. So there is an old they basically just made an elevated platform that you can overlook the river, okay? But then you're okay, but this platform is pretty far away from the river. Then people will tell you, yes, now. Because until 2021, the river was directly at the platform. But because, the masses of water were so brutal, pushing through that valley, the whole course of the river basically changed from one side of the valley to the other. Which is kind of insane to think about. But that's nature. It doesn't give a fuck. So yeah, basically, now they're doing a lot of very simple stuff building more resilient bridges, which is actually pretty simple. You make bridges that are... First of all, you build less bridges, because the Ahrtal had a lot of old bridges that were we have a pedestrian bridge / bike bridge, and then a railway bridge besides that, and then a car bridge. And now they're just okay, where we can, we're putting the bridges together, which saves bridge space. Because all those bridges basically became points where debris piled up, built up more water, then broke and created even worse waves going flooding down the valley. So that's one thing. So like less bridges, building them higher, and also just way less, way smaller pillars that, you know, there are less contact points. So if there is water, it just flows through. Simple. Then, you know, making the land a bit, you know, giving the river more space to just expand, especially at the upper parts, because that's the thing. Floods don't happen in the lower parts. They happen in the upper parts. So if there's just more space there to expand for a river, it's not going to be as dramatic. Also, another very simple thing, buildings are now, you know, built upwards. Like, you know, you have the ground floor is more like there's the garage and some storage rooms, but like electricity, heating, you know, all the important stuff you want in your house is now in the roof. And so there is always, you know, there's space, vertical space to, you know, segregate the water from the living space. Makes also sense. But you know what the most interesting thing is you can do to prevent floods? Or, you know, actually make floods less bad. To the point that I'm like, it is criminal that we don't do this around the world. Because every year, you know, every few years we hear, oh, there's another catastrophic flood in countries like Pakistan. And then everyone's like, oh, this is horrible, shrugs and moves on. And like, the thing about Pakistan is that it's a very, it's a very mountainous area. So they have like a few central rivers. But the key thing about a flood is that heavy rainfalls, you know, they don't just, like the main river doesn't get fed only by that rainfall. It also gets fed by all the extra rivers that flow into them. So one of the things they want to do in the Ahrtal now, and they have done in a few other places, is actually just look at, you know, those rivers that have, you know, those side rivers that have their own little valleys usually, and build a dam. Like, quite literally. You just have dams where sometimes even a street can go through it, etc. But the point is that when it rains, those giant dams can just be closed with like an overflow. So more water is held back in the other valleys after, and you know, after the rain, you can then slowly drain that out. It's just, again, expensive to make. And remember how I told you that there was one major flood in 1912? Well, guess what they proposed back then to build? Yeah, 100 years ago they already were like, well, if we just build a lot of dams in the upper valleys, then we can just hold back the water and release it slowly when, you know, everything is getting better again. And then they didn't because, well, it stopped flooding, so who cares? Also, it would cost money, so we don't want to spend money right now. Just... I think it just needs to be said how much we just have negligence ruling decisions. Because if we look at countries like Pakistan, we can prevent so many floods, but people just don't fucking care. Like, we have the, hey, Rizlot, getting, haven't seen you in a while. Yeah, engineering and flood prevention, and I know, it's just this do you want to spend the money to prevent something that might be only happening, you know, nearly 100 years later? It's just something where I'm like, we should just be saying yes, because you know, sorry when I just shut up, because sometimes you just picture like all the preventable death in front of you. You know, preventable death due to that you could do if people just got money and let people build solutions. And then you just kind of then you just sit there, you know, and not like, we let this happen every single time. And then I'm like, how does this happen? And then some people are like, well, this is just how it is there. And like, but it could be different. We can prevent this shit. We're not like, you know what? I'm taking probably saying the most you know, the most Victorian era take ever. But as much as we should preserve nature, we can shape nature as well, if we want to. If we're saying we do not want to have flooding anymore, or, you know, at least make flooding so, such a lesser impact that it doesn't kill people or destroy villages and just has a lesser impact, we can do that. Also, by the way, can I, by the way, interest you in the fact that building dams in those river valleys that, you know, feed bigger rivers to prevent floods would also actually help a shit ton. You know, help with water retention. Like, one of the major problems we have nowadays is, well, droughts. Because a lot of, you know, basically for water to get into lower areas of the ground, it needs to, you know, sink in slowly. So the more we have aggressive rainfalls, the more we actually have the problem that all that water will just sweep away and sweep trees with it. And you know what trees do? They reinforce the ground with their roots. So if we want to combat climate change, and one of the things we have to face is, you know, more floods and more rainwater coming at once, being actually a detriment to water retention, then we maybe should actually think about building those dams to hold back the flood rainwater and then being able to slowly disperse it again. Because that might be better for the environment overall. Just an idea, though. Yeah. Small topic over. Hope you liked some insight into engineering and problem solving. But yeah, as said, this was about but yeah, this is all stuff I learned because they rebuilt a railway in record time. So hell yeah. But how does that help win the next election and beat the other party? I mean, no. You know, like, you are so right. This is, like, also just a problem everywhere. Because this long-term thinking is just not present anymore, you know? Like... One of my favorite examples of that kind of bullshit here is the fact that in local elections, a lot of times they talk about reworking the parts of the school again, because, well, that's something they can change easily and fast, and then, you know, the parents are like, ah, look, they changed something, and usually it's bullshit. It's just bullshit. Stay to one system. I don't know what is going on with me right now, but I smell... I just felt like I smelled blood and keep doing melee stuff. Yeah. But, yeah. It's always so funny because, if you actually look at certain things like... for example, infrastructure bills, like the dams. Yeah, I get it. It's kind of ironic that there were plans hundreds of years ago to actually flood save the region, and they didn't do it. And now one of the big pushes from the from people in the region is like legitimately just to say, fuck that, we are doing this now. Like, there, for example, and this is not even like a small thing. Like, for example, there is a person that runs a winery. I think that's the word. And basically, one of his things is he actually has to give up lower parts where he of the fields where he grows, the fruit for wine. The wine. What's the wine fruits in English?
Grapes.
Grapes. Yeah. Where he grows grapes, so it can be actually renaturalized into a flood field. And he's like, yeah, grapes, we I'm gonna help gladly. And he's just like, yeah, that's a hit I have to take, but, you know, he's not mad about it because that's just better for everyone else. You know, he's not going to go bankrupt over, you know, a few lost, you know, hectares of grapes. You know, especially since, you know, the good stuff is more up the hill, not at the bottom, but still. It's kind of interesting, but... Also, similarly, you know, they wanted to have their railway back because, as they said before, you know, they are like basically historic towns in a valley. Like, they have a lot of tourism, and they're like, listen, there is not enough room. So they're like, so for the last years, they, you know, if they had tourists, those had to come with the car. And they were like, it's too full. We need, we need the train again, so people, you know, can just park their car somewhere else and just come in with the train again. So our, you know, valley isn't clogged. And due to that, they, you know, they rebuilt the railway. And if you're wondering, okay, that probably was a big project, and yes, but also it was rebuilding in some sections like the lower section was rebuilding and upgrading, but the lower section is basically, the upper section is basically, they had to build the whole thing from scratch while making it more flood safe. And the flood was in 2021. It's opening this December. And they built new stations. They upgraded it to electricity. They electrified the railway. They even put a new. They even put down 2 tracks in certain areas and want to run even more trains over the line. Yeah, it's fast, right? Like, even for a railway that is regional, mostly running single-tracked, getting shit done in... and by the way, flood was July 2021. They started building early 2023. So this was basically just a 2-year process of just getting the railway running again. I never want to hear anyone, complain anymore. Because they also never went over budget or had any problems, because the main thing that happened was they had a right of way. There was, the political willingness to just build the thing again, so no one blocked it. They had a central planning committee, so there were no, hidden costs or redo shit. And wow, they just built a railway in 2 years. That's something, right? My whole life I've been trying to get a single rail from South Florida to North Florida. I think the project's 15 plus years in its 3/4 build. That's awesome. That's still good. Yeah, but it says a lot about the current political climate, I would say. Like, I will keep saying, the main problem railways have are just bad planning and NIMBYs. Like, it's just that. I mean, yeah, in the USA you also have the bullshit of, the freight railways, but like, I'm sorry, the network should just be owned by the state, period. And then they could actually enforce rules, maybe. And, if it's not like a private thing to like a factory or so, a railway where no one will ever run, passenger rail, then it can be private. But everything else, no, should not be private. Should just be funded by the state. They should, do a fucking tax on who's using it, because like Amtrak, well, it's already owned, by the US, so you can just be like, no, Amtrak is just like, we run this as a service on there, but all the freight rails have to actually pay up. It would fund the network instantly. I keep saying the biggest problem the US railway network has is not directly that it doesn't exist. Also, like in Florida, sure, they should build it. They should build more than it. Like, ever thought about the fact that only now some think about, hey, maybe we should actually build some form of rail connection between Orlando Airport and, Disneyland and, Universal Studios, which is like the main thing where people go to, and they all have to drive by car, and it's kind of insane that this is just the case. Like, I can tell you, the irony would be that if you pitch it right, Universal and Disney would probably even pitch in. Like, it's pretty insane, I would say. But like, if I look at some other, Oh, nice, I killed Rainbow Dash. But like, one of my favorite examples of railway is always the Crescent, because if you think about it, a train that drives from New Orleans up to New York/Boston. Wow. It's just also not really that long of a time, in terms of distance. Like, but it takes days. And the interesting thing is, it wouldn't even be the biggest problem. Because, you know what? Bold thing to say. I do think the USA has actually really good rolling stock. There. I don't think you actually need high-speed rail. In a lot of cases. In the beginning. Okay. Asterisk. You should still fucking build high-speed rail in a lot of places, because it just would make more sense. But the problem of lines like the Crescent isn't that it's not high-speed rail. The problem is that it's just not usable rail at all. Like, if that line was actually just taken over by the US government, and, they put down 2 tracks, maybe even a third. So, on those parts where like a lot of cargo rail is running, they can run on the 3rd rail track and just be happy. Okay, just make modern with concrete pillars, just a solid railway line, 2-tracked, electrified, and with enough space so cargo rail and passenger rail doesn't impede each other. You can still upgrade the stations, that's one thing. And then you just put an electric locomotive in front of the old, 50s, 80s rolling stock. And you know what? It would be fine. Like, you have, there are comfy seats. You basically only need some, Wi-Fi expansion, but that's something you can build, when you upgrade the railway. And as long as this train can run in consistent high speeds, like, as long as the trains can run at like 180 kilometers per hour, they don't need 200. One at 160, 170 to 180 kilometers per hour, just consistently. And people have like sleep wagons. They have like, a dinner car where they can, maybe upgrade a bit the food offerings there. People would take the train always, because suddenly it's like, yeah, no, it would take a bit longer, but I can work. I can, I can just browse the internet. I can take a shower. It's comfy seats. Why wouldn't I take the train? Yeah. It's... But like, that's the irony about Amtrak. It really is just because the cargo rail companies own the tracks, and they're like, no, fuck you. Technically, we have you have right of way, but who's going to enforce that? You little little Amtrak. Who's going to do that? The state? No. And yeah, that's it. They just then run gigantic fuck off cargo rail, and then you're like, yeah, no, we have to wait now. Fuck you. And that's everything in a nutshell. And it's kind of insane considering you actually have a pretty good railway system. You know, if it was maintained in crucial areas, and the cargo railways just reined in a little bit, that's it. That you would make so much workable, but I mean, the irony is, I would say, this isn't even on the car lobby a lot of times. And the car lobby is there, like, obviously, but the irony is just the irony is just the moment you know, the railways went into private hands, and they realized they're not making money from cargo, and they're not making money from passenger, just from cargo rail. They went and just removed every single bit of passenger rail that would work. Like, you know, that's one of the reasons why you have so many single track lines, because basically they're just running cargo trains that are so long because that saves them money. They're also running cargo trains with even less personnel, which saves them money, but, you know, makes the trains unsafe, but who cares? They're single tracking the railway lines that were double tracked a lot of times, because then they don't have to you know, maintain stuff like switches, which is the most money they take. The most money that will, is actually going into maintenance, so they just removed that. Then they made this, you know, and they just pile that up and up and up, because that's just how they make money. And ironically, if you have a system like that, the car lobby doesn't even need to do a lot of things, because it is simply not in the interest of cargo rail to even slightly, you know, concede on those points. Which is a crime, but yeah. But hey, it's not like other countries are, you know, fucking, but it's like, you know, sometimes, or a lot of times, you just have NIMBYs saying bullshit, like, you know, people are like, building a railway is so, you know, it's going to be so loud and make problems, or, you know, like, we had this here, you know, people, like, went and they were like, no, they should not expand, you know, the pretty important railway corridor that is right literally here. And, you know, they wanted to build a new S-Bahn over it, which is actually pretty fucking good to have, because it would just, you know, it's just better, you know, connection to everything. And people tried being like, oh, if they're going to build here, they're going to cut down all those trees in the park here, and turns out that was a lie. Like, this is probably the one thing that just baffles me the most all the time, every single time people rally against a railway project, they are just lying. They just keep lying. And like, one of the things that we currently have is
Support on the marked objective.
like for example, what we have right now, what is currently an unfolding story, which is sadly also going over a decade now, is the story of something called Alpha E. So the thing is, basically, between the two German cities of Hamburg and Hanover, there's like one of the most important railway lines in general. Like, it's Hamburg, and there's like Hamburg, Hanover, big freight railway corridor. And you also have the whole thing of Bremen coming in there. Like, there's freight railway, there's like major passenger railway, a lot of it. And I think the corridor is like just overloaded by 168%. It's bonkers. So, 2015, they basically went and had a whole discussion of they had like a forum where people could talk about and basically say what should be done. And there were a lot of things proposed, like, for example, build a new railway. And or upgrade the old railway. That was so building a new one is the Y solution, and Alpha A was the whole we upgrade the new one with like a new track, etc. The old one with a new track. So what happens? They basically went through all of them, and turns out Alpha A is bullshit. It just would never, ever, do any of the things people claimed it would. While, building a new railway line in the center is like, because basically to think of it as like there's a triangle between those three cities in terms of railways, and they wanted to build one straight through the middle, because the main problem they have with traffic is, from north to south, not from east to west. And that's just one point people always try to just put under the, sweep under the rug, to be like, nah, it's not that relevant. And so basically they went and were like, okay, here's the you got presented, and then in the first one they were like, hey, your proposal for expansion is bullshit. It doesn't work. It will never fucking work. But because a lot of them just didn't want a new, railway to be built in the region, they just were like, no, we're looking on how to optimize the railway. Like, if we rewrote freight trains or stuff like that. And so they had like 5 proposals, and there was like they had someone, to look into them. A third party. And then they made a presentation. And you know what happened? All 5 optimization aspects were bullshit. They will not work at all. And yet they were like, no, we're going with that. And turns out, because it was not enough, now the Deutsche Bahn is just like, no, thing we actually need is a new railway track. Fuck it. We're going to tell that, that's the thing that's going to be voted on in the Bundestag, and it's probably going to be approved. So hopefully this fucking shit is over soon. But the NIMBYs are now like, they're ignoring us and what we actually wanted, and like, no, your proposal doesn't work, and you keep lying about it. They just keep lying as if it was in any way or shape approved, or, you know, that they're like, no, it actually fulfills totally everything we said. And then they have like the gall to do shit, to pull shit like, well, you see, the thing, the Deutsche Bahn wants is like, old projections are going to be way less ICEs in the future and way less cargo rail, so we don't need the new railway track. And okay, someone looked at the new projections, and turns out, no, you still need the new railway track, because I don't think you can wheedle your way out of saying, you know, slamming down a third rail is 100% enough to just, get rid of being over 168% over capacity. You know what's one of the funniest things that they did, just to really hammer home how shitty these people are? So on one of some of the key parts, like Hamburg to Ulsan and Ulsan to Hanover, they went and were like, okay, how clogged is the railway going to be? And the average was, not good, not bad, the daily average. So funny enough, then they were like, okay, but what is the average between 6 and 19? The time where most people take the train and most trains drive. You know what it was? They were horribly clogged. Horribly. Like, even with all the bullshit they pulled, the moment you look at the times where trains drive, with every improvement they proposed, the railway would be horribly overloaded. Less than now, but still horribly. And yet, because if you just take the night time, where barely any trains drive, and be like, well, it's not clocked there, so the daily average is just way lower. You're just like, why? Why is there genuinely no, legal consequences for this behavior? Because it feels like it should be illegal, right? It feels like this should be punished in some way. When someone is just like, oh, we want this solution. The solution is just not feasible, not workable, absolutely not, and people have to just ignore you to get the good solution, and then they just keep lying, and there's just no consequence, and there's like if you're a politician that just lies about that, you should just be insta-banned from politics. If you're someone who's if you're someone who's lying about that, and you own land besides the new track, you should be fined horribly, because what the fuck? It's kind of amazing that we just don't have any form of, deterrent, that people can't, because there are moments where I would say, yeah, it is important to have actually a critical talk about infrastructure. But a lot of times it's astroturfed, astroturfed by right-wing groups, fake ecological groups, NIMBYs and just a whole lot of bullshit piling up in the background because they just don't want to. They just don't want a new railway. They just don't want to have it there. Another absurd thing that is currently happening is that, you know, in Bavaria, between two communities, like two towns, they want to actually build a new bike path besides an existing road, by the way. Just a little bit off to that. Just a new bike path on a road that a lot of people already bike on, and that would just make it so that you can easier, like with a way more direct road drive, ride your bike between two towns, and, you know, go through a few villages on the way. That sounds great, right? Who would have anything against that? I guess actually some, you know, but now even some people from like actual real, you know, nature protection organizations who apparently just drank the paint juice because they're like, no, that would be so bad and would rip up so much. Like, it's a bike path right next to a road. And then counter arguments are, well, there's a bike path on the other side of the valley of a lake that adds multiple kilometers to the distance and has more elevation differences. Again, what the fuck are we doing here? What? Anyway. Hope you all had fun. About my goddamn ranting, but hey, it's going forward. I guess soon we have some engineering stuff unlocked. Let's see. How hard is the rest? Considering SFH. That's just gonna take a while, but yeah, doable. Okay, yeah, those are actually really easily doable. Well, we'll see. If we're done with that, I guess we're going to start getting our support stuff before they patch the Goliath part, because I don't think a lot of people use it right now, but it's just broken. So that's gonna be interesting. Yeah. See you all soon. Tomorrow is Lunacid. Yes. And hopefully, yeah, Lunacid, and then hopefully some more relaxed time next week. And if you're wondering, Friday, probably no EU5 now. We're gonna do some Vermintide 2. Gonna be fun killing rats. Oh yeah, if you're like, wow, Vermintide 2, that sounds fun. It is free to own on Steam if you don't have it yet. It's like the 23rd, it's the 23rd November of 2025. So if you hear that before the next day, like the 24th, you can still grab it. Just saying. Have a good evening and good night. Bye.